Okay, brilliant, fantastic. Right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Feels like it's been a long time now since that Christmas break, or even had a bit of time off. It would be nice, but feels a long time ago now. But happy days here for me in Shropshire. It's lovely, sunny. It's quite warm in comparison to last week, so loving this nice, bright weather. Really feels like a nice, bright new year. So today, got a brilliant Aletia Norman here to talk about some amazing studies that she did recently, which I'm sure she'll mention and talk about, but around the role of nursing in preventing deconditioning in hospital, which got Alicia the Betty Lees Prize, which really congratulations. Thanks to Debbie Whittaker for introducing me. We'll all know Debbie from the East of England and the original deconditioning games. Debbie's still very much in this space and still around. I think she's on with us today, but managed to introduce me to Alicia, and I thought a great opportunity to bring her into this forum to share that study. As we said before Christmas, we're going to leave a bit of space as well for any questions, anything you obviously questions for Alicia on the study or anything else, but also come and utilize the wisdom of the crowd. And we have quite a lot of wisdom in the room today across the patch, looking across the names on the screen. So if you have any questions or challenges, or you just need a bit of peer support from people, please start to use this space to bring anything you want. I often see some chat in the WhatsApp group, and I think I wonder what that would look like if we're able to have it played out in terms of in a forum like this. So please do, if you have any questions, have a think about that and bring that in later on. We have got the amazing Brian Dowden with us today, who's going to pop on and have a bit of a chat about his conference later on this year. But also, why not take the opportunity to ask Brian a few questions as well, if you want to. So enough from me. I think I'm gonna hand over to the main event for today, which is it just you, Alicia, or have you got a support act?
No, it's just me today.
Okay,
Hello, everyone.
brilliant, brilliant. So the floor is yours, and you can fill this space with whatever you want to fill it with, and then we'll open up for questions maybe afterwards. So entirely over to you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I'm not really sure. This is my first time coming to the meeting, so I'm not sure what you usually cover and things. But as you mentioned, I did my dissertation on deconditioning. So I'll just go through a little bit of what I've written out for when I do talks and things. So if I am teaching you to suck eggs, I apologise. You probably know about all of this already. But I'll go over basically what I found in my study, and what I came up with. So I'll start off by saying that deconditioning within healthcare is commonly defined as a state of poor functional performance after admission in an acute hospital setting. This is also referred to as hospital-associated deconditioning. Deconditioning is known to cause a decline in the physiological, psychological, and functional abilities due to the prolonged bed rest faced during a hospital admission. This decline is associated with a multitude of physiological and psychological effects, such as pneumonia, skin breakdown, which can lead to pressure ulcers, loss of muscle strength, loss of independence, incontinence, constipation, depression, and an increased risk of falls. The prevalence of hospital-associated deconditioning across the studies included in my review was estimated to be at 30% as of 2020 and is assumed to rise as the older population continues to expand. In addition, it is estimated that 68% of people are discharged from their acute hospital admission with lower functionality than pre-admission. The elderly population is disproportionately affected by hospital-associated deconditioning due to the already known age-related physiological decline, which makes this population of people more vulnerable than any other demographic. After working in a variety of settings over the 3 years of my nurse training, I saw how deconditioning impacted upon patients, and that's where my curiosity into deconditioning began. I chose the topic for my dissertation project for university, which allowed me to research further into the topic. This is where I found that there are no set interventions in place for deconditioning currently, only guidelines and recommendations to help prevent it. Sorry, I'm in the staff room, so people are just coming and getting ready to go. During my research, I found there were 6 main themes that contribute significantly to the deconditioning in the hospital. These were the bed rest and sedentary time, care factors, sleep disturbances, and nutritional status, as well as continence care and cognitive and emotional status. When we think of deconditioning, it is easy to associate that with extended bed rest and sedentary time patients experience during their admission, as it's one of the most obvious signs we see as healthcare practitioners. One of the studies included in my review found that patients in their study were sedentary for 96% of the time. This included either laying down or sitting. They concluded that this significantly contributed to their patients' deconditioning. This study also indicated a significant decline in the patient's capacity of performing their activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, and tending to their toilet and needs themselves. Bear with me one sec.
That's okay.
Sorry, I've moved office.
Well
There we
done.
go.
I thought you had an audience.
Yeah, they were using the microwave now, so that would be awkward. So where was I up to? So it affects their ADLs as well, what they can do for themselves. The other study in there reported on the sedentary time of their participants, and 272 of those, which 51.9% of those walked outside of their room only, at least once a day. These participants were considered highly mobile for the hospital setting. 30.1% walked only inside of their room and were considered moderately mobile, and 18% were restricted to their bed or only transferred from their bed to a chair. 317 participants in another study were found to have ongoing functional decline at 1 month post hospitalisation in comparison to their baseline before admission. However, as I mentioned, there were another 5 main themes that also significantly contributed to deconditioning, not just the mobility and the bed rest that they would spend in sedentary. So care factors were another one of the main themes, and this pertains to the skill levels between those that provide care to the patients, including nurses, nursing assistants, carers, relatives and or spouses, which was found to have a direct association with deconditioning. One study found that patients that had no caregivers or were cared for by their spouses were significantly more at risk of deconditioning than those patients who had their children providing care. So I thought when I looked into this study more, that it could be ascertained that maybe the spouses that were caring for their, because they were elderly themselves, weren't able to do as much as, the nurse and care assistants or the children that provide the care. Sleep, that was another factor that was found to significantly contribute to deconditioning. One study found that 32.7% of their participants showed a decline in their cognitive function at discharge in comparison to their baseline. The study determined that their participants' cognitive function declined due to a variety of stressors, including sleep deprivation. Similarly, another study found that 5.9% of their participants reported feeling fatigued during their admission and up to 1 month after discharge, despite not suffering fatigue prior to admission. Nutritional status, that was another theme that appeared throughout the studies that I reviewed. 3 of the 6 studies showed that their participants were only consuming around 60% of their required calorific intake during their admission, and these studies linked malnutrition to long-term functional decline. Continence care, and specifically the use of catheters mainly, and patients' attitude towards having a catheter inserted were linked to deconditioning. This is because it was found that patients saw a catheter as a restraining harness, were less inclined to move around freely with a catheter inserted. Cognitive and emotional status also came up as a theme, and the study showed that patients reported feelings of apathy and depression when they hadn't prior to admission. The study showed that cognitive status of their participants deteriorated during their admission, and that depression in one set of participants increased to 20.5% post-discharge. And then, where was I? Yeah. So a number of the NHS trusts across the UK have initiated initiatives in response to guidelines and recommendations aimed at preventing deconditioning and promoting physical exercise within the hospital setting. Make Movement Count is a training resource created by a physiotherapist at one NHS trust and is one of these initiatives. The aim is to increase awareness of the benefits of using a multidisciplinary approach to encourage inpatient activity. Other physical activity focused initiatives like end PJ paralysis have been implemented by a ward in another UK hospital with the goal of encouraging and assisting at least 25% of their patients to get out of bed and dressed by lunchtime. The deconditioning games is another one program centered on physical activity. This involves the use of pedal exercises that can be utilized while seated in a chair to encourage physical activity. And what I found during my research is that while the current NHS initiatives and studies on their effectiveness focus on the physical aspect of deconditioning, I didn't find any of these initiatives have significantly included measures that enhance patients' care in a holistic way, such as considering patients' cognitive function. Following analysis of the data in the review, I developed a proposal for a service improvement plan which focused on all the main themes found in my research. The intervention includes a risk assessment tool that looks to highlight those patients at risk of deconditioning by assessing if they were admitted due to a fall or if they had had any falls within 12 months, if they are confused or have a history of mental health or seem in a low mood upon admission. If the risk assessment highlights a patient is at risk of deconditioning, the intervention would be required. This would be completed daily and includes observing and encouraging patients to mobilise, encouraging 3 meals a day and snacks and make sure they're well hydrated. If the patient has visitors and if their religious beliefs are being considered, as well as other aspects. And yeah, I'm looking at how to implement this within my trust and working with the relevant people to hopefully begin to fine tune the details, pilot the intervention on the ward I'm currently working on. And that's where I'm up to as of now. And I'd just like to thank you all for your time. And sorry about the interruption.
No, it's brilliant, Alicia. No, really, really good stuff. And don't apologise at all. We're all friendly faces here, so that's not a problem whatsoever. So brilliant. I love that. So really, really conclusive in terms of covering off so many different aspects of
Yeah, I
what the
tried to, yeah,
interpretation.
I tried to get it all because obviously it was a big dissertation, like 8,000 and something words, not like quite a 10,000 one. But I had to try and really get that succinct, try and cover everything I covered in my dissertation in a short little, yeah.
Mm.
That's
Have you
mainly what.
written have you written it up in obviously you've written your dissertation up, but have you summarized it in a paper or a poster or a slide deck
I'm
at all?
I'm looking at getting it published, yeah, as an article in British Journal of Nursing. So hopefully I've got to narrow that down to 3,000 words as well. So I'm in the process of narrowing that down and covering all the aspects I've covered on here,
Uh,
in my dissertation. Yeah, so I'm in the process of that. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
but brilliant. So yeah, we'll look forward to uh, reading that. Because it'd
Yeah.
be good to be able to sort of share that across the group. Um, so suppose for me, before I open up to questions, and anybody who's ready to go with questions, just pop your hand up or pop it in the chat, and I'll come to you. I think the thing for me is that is the what you've already picked up in terms of we often focus on physical deconditioning, but I think the interesting part there is about how you've explored more around the cognitive and emotional deconditioning, and also the fatigue. That's really interesting to me about the feelings of fatigue post discharge
Mm.
based on the
Yeah, and
kind of sleep.
depression, and yeah, and obviously if a patient's feeling depressed post discharge, they're going to be less inclined to want to do things for themselves, and then you're at
Mm,
risk self neglect as well. So yeah, all of these things obviously come into it, but I didn't realize how much until I started to look into deconditioning, how much that all actually affected as a whole. Yeah, all these little
yeah.
areas.
You said you're going to take this. You're going to take it forward on your own ward, or you've started taking it forward on your own
Yeah,
ward.
fingers crossed. So yeah.
Where do you where do you foresee some of the challenges?
Well, it's another bit of paperwork. So it's another risk assessment, which obviously everybody loves that. Another risk assessment for us, healthcare professionals to fill in. So I don't think that'll go down too well. But it can be incorporated. We've got a booklet here. I don't know if it's across the UK as a whole, but in this trust they've rolled out a booklet relatively recently. Um, and that's got like all the paperwork, like try to like narrow it down. So I think that could slot in there quite nicely. If I sneak it in. But yeah, the risk assessment, we already do a lot of it. look for patients that have been admitted due to a fall or have had history of falls. We look at like mental health and things like that. So really, this risk assessment should fit in quite nicely. But yeah, I do foresee challenges of oh, it's another bit of paperwork, but yeah, we'll
So
see.
I'm going to hand over to Brian in a minute, but just to finish off, just to say thank you for very much for sharing that. You are now connected to this network of over 500 people across the country, and
Yeah,
you're
I'm
just
very
getting
nervous
you're
talking to
getting
you.
started. Well, you should. I don't, because they're all really friendly people.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
everyone.
but they're now here for you as well. You've been kind enough to come along and share your story, and you are beginning your deconditioning journey with your organisation, your ward. This group is now about, you should definitely draw on the experience and the peer support that, sometimes I think a lot of people in this group today and across the wider group would recognise sometimes it feels like they're trying to push water uphill with some of this kind of work, and it gets difficult. And when those moments get difficult, you may want to sort of connect with the group. I know there's lots going on in Norfolk and Norwich anyway around this work, and I see Deb Whittaker is on the call now. I saw pop up before, across the east of England. So there's lots of friends around that can help. So you must do please feel free to come and draw on that support, because there's a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge out there. So please do that. I'm going to go to Brian first, and then go to Deb.
Thanks very much, Nick. And Alicia, that was outstandingly good. I know you kind of started with, oh, I hope you don't think I'm teaching you suck egg and stuff like that. Actually, you made a great omelette and we all ate it. It was really, really, really great talk. And I
Yeah.
love how you themed it as well. There's some really good things in there. So there's two things, well, a couple of things really. The first is, would you be kind enough to put your email address in the chat box?
Of course.
Because what I'd like to do is email you and invite you to speak at our global NPJ Paralysis Summit, which will be at the 9th and 10th of July. Because this is really great stuff. And I think all of us on this, with this thing, there's always new things to learn for every one of us. I've been scribbling away furiously. Actually, I was very mild-mannered when I was writing. I wasn't furious, but scribbling lots as well in terms of the things that you've done. And I'm also going to presume Leslie Dwyer, your chief exec, somebody I've known for many years, and Rachel, your chief nurse. I'm going to drop them a line because they need to know people like you are in the organization doing fantastic stuff. And we should celebrate somebody who's relatively, early on in your career. How do we identify stars like you and celebrate you? So
Oh, thank you. Thank
congratulations.
you.
So if you're
Thank
happy
you.
to
So
just drop
kind.
your email, and I'll
Of
be, yeah,
course. Yeah.
my people will talk to your people. I'll talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Of
Thank
course.
you,
Yeah.
Alicia. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Brian. It's very kind.
Gee.
And I think that element of we're all learning. We're all learning all the time, and whatever we discover, it's always those new little things that we find. There are some things that are very familiar to us, and some things that are new, and something, wow, just where did that come from? And some very and it's this continual discovery and reframing of the problem or the solution or whatever it might be. I think is really important. Brian told me something many years ago about this idea of how you generate a social movement, which essentially the MPJ paralysis movement, which and I know Brian won't mind me telling you, MPJ paralysis had no money attached to it. It had no project plan. It just started, and it based itself on the principles of social movement. And deconditioning games and the ReconditionTheNation is just another iteration of that we create a different way of looking at it, or refreshing the message, or whatever it might be. So any new observations, any new studies, it may feel like it's the same, but it's always going to be slightly different. And that's how we continue to kind of and that's how social movements develop. Essentially, is that the word that Brian taught me was the word extensibility, which means that you can extend what you already do into something else. It's the same, but it's kind of extended. So that's why I see the value in that, and sharing that at the global summit will be really really helpful as well. So thank you, Brian, for that. Deb, I shall bring you in now.
Thanks very much, and it's been so lovely to have the opportunity to come and hear you talk about your dissertation, and what I've really taken away from this is that it sounds like it's really shaped you as a nurse. You did this as your dissertation at the end of your student training, and it sounds like it's really influenced and shaped the nurse that you are becoming. And so yeah, it's been a real pleasure listening to you, Alicia. And just to extend offer of support, anything I can do, be good to touch base after this and just you know anything that we can do to link you into other people to support you. And like Brian says, those emails are really useful. I know I've already emailed Rachel, and you won an award that is has come from the organisation as well. But I think the more we can do to raise your profile and help you along that journey is really important, and really important to drive the work and the improvement work that's happening around preventing harm from deconditioning. I was just wondering, have you, I mean, you're very early in your career, and what kind of ward are you on? I was just interested to.
Vascular. So we have a lot of amputations here and things. So obviously, we have patients that then go on to a rehabilitation unit in Norwich. So we try and get them ready for that rehab unit before, as much as we can. So we get them up and as mobile as they can with their new one leg, which can be quite daunting. And obviously it affects their mental health massively. Going from two legs to one is such a big life changing moment. So I think this ward would be great to start something like that on, but also I'm very aware that it's not quite the same. We have a lot of young patients as well that aren't older and at risk as much of deconditioning, but slightly different, with because they're amputees, a slightly different kind of deconditioning really, is not, we have to go about it in a different way. But the ward downstairs below me, they're an older people's medical unit. They've already said that they'd like to try it on their ward and stuff like that as well. So I've got a few places that well, the whole hospital here is really supportive, luckily. So yeah, a few places that I can try it on, and see.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It sounds like you're doing a great job already, starting to influence even outside of your ward area. So great work. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
At least just thinking about the personal journey you've been on, and I suppose for other um, younger nurses, junior nurses coming through, graduating, moving into nursing, and about how it's really great to get this awareness, this knowledge at this stage of your career, because it, as Debbie said, it kind of cements you that understanding. What was you obviously chose to do this as your dissertation because you'd established a degree of awareness. What was the point that it switched for you? Was it through your training? Was it through the time that you spent while you were a student nurse? What was the point when you thought this is really something?
I think it was in one of my final placements, actually, in a community hospital, and that was primarily a rehabilitation hospital. So they were medically fit patients, but mainly they were all older patients, 65 and over, 70, 80 plus, 90, and they were medically fit, but not quite well enough, or they weren't at their baseline that they could go home. So they were all reporting the same thing, before I went into hospital for this, I could do all this for myself and now I can't. So they were at this community hospital to try and, the physiotherapists were really good working with them, trying to get them walking 10 meters or something, doing muscle strengthening exercises. And that's when I really thought, why does this happen when they go into hospital? They can do all this for themselves. They can bath themselves, shower, get themselves dressed in the morning, and now they can't. They seem to be able to not even stand. So that's when I really started to look into it and wonder what it was. And yeah, that's when I then chose the topic for my dissertation, to properly dive into it and have the support of the university to do so. So yeah, I
Thank you.
found it really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great insight. Thank you, Alicia. You can take a deep breath and relax now. And um, thank you very much for that. Again, really appreciate it. I'm going to bring Brian's already touched on the global summit. I'm going to bring Brian back in to give a bit more details on that, and if I may, and then we'll open it up to any questions on anything, an open kind of floor discussion from anybody else. So get your thinking caps on while Brian's tempting you with with the potential for the global summit. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Alicia. And do drop your email in the chat box, if you will. So if you get a moment, thank you, because you've done that on phone. And also, what was also impressive about the presentation Alicia just done is under pressure with people coming in and out, still managed to nail it, which was great. And so what I want to share with you, if I may, is some of you may have seen, those who are on the NPJ Paralysis Facebook page or connect with LinkedIn or things like that. Thanks, Alicia. Will know that Professor Linda Holt and I are going to do a one day, we've been asked about this for a long time now, a one day face-to-face event about NPJ paralysis. And Nick, if it's possible to share, oh, I can do it here from here, can I? But I'll take it everyone can see this.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this on the 2nd of April. We've now got a venue as of last week in Stratford Manor Hotel. And the advantage of that is literally 10 minutes off Junction 15 up the M40 towards Stratford, and Warwick Parkway is another 5 minutes past that, beyond that. So it's very, very easy to access. And these are the kind of overall themes. What we've said to people is if you want to QR code it and pay a deposit of £50, if you don't like the program when it's out, you can have your money back. So but we've only got about 75 places and already 20 of them are gone. And I'm really chuffed to tell you that, and Jackie Holmes from this parish, who's here with us. I spoke to Jackie first thing yesterday morning, because we're going to do Dr. Ahmed Aurora, the clinical lead for ReconditionTheNation. He's going to speak about the pathophysiology of deconditioning. We can't, as Alicia has shown us, we can't be reminded often enough about that. Jackie, who I love, she's fantastic. She's just worth her weight in petrol, as you all know, is going to talk about Eat, Drink, Rest, Move, and that great work and how getting the message out there. We're going to have 3 other speakers about the reality of the things that people do, and how they get it happen. So how to make it work. And in fact, what I'm going to be able to show you, I think, is now, as if you will, don't take this as the final gospel, more about an interpretation of the more about it. I'm just going to turn myself off so I can quickly find the right page. Just give you a flavor, and that's all I can put it at this moment, because Linda Holt is going to do the amazing stuff that only she can do and make it look like it'll be impressive. So you'll just get a quick flavor of what the conference will look like if I show it to you here. And this is kind of what it looks like. I'm going to talk about why does it all matter. Amit speaking about deconditioning. Jackie. We'll do some case studies, who's doing some cool stuff. This is the older version. We've updated it overnight, in fact. So Linda won't speak on this, but we'll talk about the today model, time, ownership, diagnostics, actions, you. Here we go. It's a more recent version that Linda sent overnight about creating movement and ideas to action. A talk about preventing deconditioning at home. How do you communicate with patients and relatives? And Alicia's point about spouses, it's harder than it is for children, I think is a really important and valid one. And many of you may have heard me say a sign of a health system that's successful is with closed rehab units, because too often people go to rehabilitation to recondition from the deconditioning that's occurred. So how do we stop it happening in the community and homes in the first place? So that, if you will, is the flavor. I think I've turned myself off, Nick? I'm no longer on share.
Yeah.
So that's a flavor of it. So do please come and join us. And we're very excited about this, the level of interest, not just what's really reassuring, I think, is far from it dissipating after 6-7 years, however long since we've doing your great old boss, Pete Gordon, Anne-Marie Riley at U8M, and Tim Gillard at the early days, and you coming in incredibly early, Nick, to support all this work, and Ambit, obviously, and others, is far from it dissipating and being yesterday's stuff. The level of interest in deconditioning is getting bigger, not lesser. And I think what has significantly changed is executive leadership across the NHS has realized, in part, if we can deal with this, it's also a bit of a get out of jail card for organizations. Because if you don't have people waiting for too long, if you're not having people having falls and pressure sores and all those various harm events, what will happen is that you won't have people lying in the back of an ambulance waiting to get in. So it has a whole system impact, and our collective work matters more than ever. So
Fabulous, packed. I mean, I packed it an understatement in terms of that agenda, Brian. And I thought when you were scrolling through there, it was going to be a 3-day conference, but there's a lot to get in. So definitely value for money, I think they say. So looks like a beautiful set of speakers there as well. So
thank you.
really thanks for sharing that. And Alison's popped in the chat about the poster. If you want to give it to me, I'll circulate it around the
Yes, and I've
around the
actually
group.
got thank you. It will be updated in quite a bit. It's even already been updated. Here's the hyperlink, and we're going to put it on the end PJ Paralysis page as well. So
Perfect.
lots of things going on, and more
Right,
to follow.
yeah. So keep us informed. So
Will do.
keep on that communication. That's
Thank you.
really useful. And yeah, it's a lovely venue. I
All right,
know
you
it.
know it.
Yeah,
It is
really
lovely.
nice venue. So yeah, it's lovely. Thanks for that, Brian. Okay, so we either will have 25 minutes time back, or we can have a sharing of any questions. We've got Brian here, we've got Deb here from the East of England, who is so steeped in this world.
Yeah.
Jackie has just dropped off, but we've got plenty of other knowledgeable experts across the room. So anybody got any questions they want to bring to the group?
Heckles on the back of a £10 note are always welcome. Oh, there's
I'm
loads of
always,
names going up.
I always leave that coaching silence just for a moment, just to see if anybody let
Holding
somebody
space.
let somebody else fill the space rather than me. It is Juliet first, and then Amanda.
Hi, sorry, I'm looking very confused because I'm working on multi-screens. I'm trying to work out which one to look at. I'm Julia. I'm Associate Director for AHPs at Great Western in Swindon. This is the first time I've attended this group, actually. I work closely with our Falls nurse, but I was fortunate to hear Brian speak in my previous trust quite a long time ago.
Well, hi,
Been
Juliet.
trying to fly the flag since I've come here as an acute trust and what we do around deconditioning. I just wondered if people are familiar with the BMAT tool, and if so, how they've used it within their organisations. I guess the first thing is, are people familiar, or do you want me to explain a bit
Yeah,
about it?
that's the first question. Anybody pop their hands up? So I see Gail was nodding there. Are you familiar with the tool? No, that was Shay.
No?
I thought it was a nod of the head. Sorry,
Okay.
Shay. So possibly not. So if you describe
Okay.
it more.
So I was hoping to get some inspiration, but so it was a tool which was developed in America because of their healthcare system. Often people don't have the insurance for physio and OT, so they had to look at creative ways to engage nurses with doing sort of assessments for mobility transfers. Now they take it to quite an extreme level in America in that they use standing and walking hoists on the wards with these patients. So the BMAT tool is an assessment tool that enables nursing and healthcare support worker staff to make a clinical judgment on whether to get someone up and moving. So we've just had, it's free to use in the NHS, but you do have to sign it off through, I'd need to check the company, I can't remember, Baxter, I think, who own the rights in this country. But we've just done that, and I'd be happy to bring that back to this group because we've looked at adopting it for our organisation. We're just rolling out some bespoke training on it. But it's the difference between doing the training and the cultural change piece. So I was just wondering if anyone else had done it, whether they'd any useful tips for how to garner some cultural change. But if
Let's
no
make a
one's done
thing of
it,
that. Let's bring that. If we'll book you in for maybe
okay,
the next
that's
month,
fine.
or whatever works for you, and we can have that discussion, because I think it can centre around the tool itself. I think as you've touched on there, the broader challenges around that I think we all experience. We can probably touch on it at the moment now in terms of the difference between tool-based approaches and the link then to the culture of the environment that the tool is placed in. Anybody got any thoughts on, this is one of, there's other tools, there's method approaches, but how do we tie that in generally in terms of culture and the environment? Brian, I'll bring Amanda in a moment if that's okay.
I think the most important thing is, excuse me, as time has evolved, moved on, my own thinking has evolved, is while it might be one NHS or one health system, it's actually 1,000 villages, which is why all of us with clinical backgrounds could have gone as student nurses from one placement to another, and the ward would be 20 meters apart, and it was a whole different country. So it feels like a lot of the work we need to do is at microculture level. So where Alicia is in a vascular ward, on another medical ward or another surgical ward, it could feel very, very different. And I think where the success and failures of these things. Well, one of my best friends went on to become senior vice president at Motorola, one of my school friends, good close friend. And he would always say to these companies pitching up to $3-4 billion contracts for Motorola products, is he'd say, look, at the end of the day, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So we get seduced by the technology and sometimes forget it's ultimately culture, microculture, and people. But the tools are also major enablers if they're user friendly. Alicia, you alluded to paperwork, and I saw there was a comment about using from VJ about EPR. It's making sure we're, instead of the bird's eye view, sometimes we need to spend a lot more time in the worm's eye view. And Nick being an organizational psychologist and a mentor now at City University, I think there's something in that about remembering that. And I think if there's an individual, by the way, in any unit, it has to be the ward manager. So the ward manager will make or break all the change. So if they're supportive, it'll fly. If they're not, well, it's like, the chances of success are slim and none, and slim's on holidays.
I just put, Deb, do you want to come in first? I was just going to, conscious I've got Amanda on hold. Are you okay with, is it a different question, Amanda, or is?
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to wait. It is on a different subject.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Deb.
Apologies, I'll take myself off mute. I think there was a lot of learning that came out of the Recondition the Nation and the deconditioning games, and probably the MPJ paralysis. All of those kind of campaigns have probably have drawn out a lot of those, a lot of the barriers to change and the challenges that we've seen, and therefore the opportunities to start to shift and change that culture. And I think from my, I mean, it's very complex, I think, but I think some of the biggest things are that you need that exec and senior leadership buy-in and support and sponsorship. You need somebody there supporting and really encouraging and having a really strong narrative about why this change and this shift is important. I think, like Brian said, taking those clinical teams along with you on that journey is so important. And just starting with people who get it and are willing to give it a change. So your biggest support, find those people who out there who a bit like Alicia, out in your clinical areas who get the importance and understand it. But I think having a really strong narrative, so pulling on some of that evidence base is really important. But using a patient's story. So what does it feel like to be a patient who was admitted on a Friday and was still in bed on a Monday or a Tuesday until somebody had a conversation about do we need to refer this patient to the physio because they're still in bed. And just, I think empowering your HCAs and your registered nurses on wards is really important, around giving them permission to think about how they could implement and make a difference locally. Sort of there's something we found a lot of ward teams, what they like about QI methodology in its broadest sense is that what it does is it gives permission to people to say, actually, we can make a difference if we just do these small changes. There's been lots of examples where the biggest challenge is time is the barrier. We're short-staffed wards, and the pressures on clinical teams, and it feels like it's something else that's been given to nurses to do. That will be some of the conversations that you will have, and I think just listening to other teams who have made similar changes can provide some really strong narrative. So one team that I can think of in particular, I don't know if anybody's on from King's Lynn, Queen Elizabeth Hospital in King's Lynn, but they had a ward who decided that they weren't going to use commodes and bedpans where it wasn't absolutely necessary for patients, which meant that patients would get wheeled to the bathroom to use an actual toilet, wheeled back, and then each day they would either be supported to stand up, and then they'd start to do a few steps, and then they'd start to increase their mobility. And what they found was if they invested the time in patients in their first 48 hours of admission, that what they did was that they were able to maintain or regain their that level of independence much quicker, or the level of deconditioning and harm that was caused to patients was lessened, which had a positive impact on the freeing up time for the nurses to care. So I think sorry, that was a lot in a big blurb, but I think it's complex, but take people along with you.
Juliet, did you want to come back on any of the from Brian or Deb before I go to Gail?
Just one thing, I'm busy scribbling it here and I'm going to pop it into the chat box, is an extraordinary paper by Professor Keisha Ball, who's now Prof of Gerontological Nursing in Canberra. And I'm just going to put in the title and also the DOI of it. But what she found is why are nurses not doing stuff? I think some of it was done out of Trinity College Dublin as well. An exceptional piece of scholarship, but also a really deep dig into microculture and why things have changed. And with the emphasis on flow being paramount, stuff isn't being done. So the failure to maintain, and increasingly talking to chief nurse execs, chief AHPs, not just in the UK, but in Australia and Ireland and in New Zealand, a big issue they're talking about is fundamentals of care. And this paper is 9 years old now, but it's remarkably prescient. And I think it may some to explain. It really illustrates the point you're also making, I think, Deb, as well.
Thanks, Brian. Gail, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just a couple of points Deb's already made actually about the taking somebody with you, and Alicia's perfect example of that. Find a champion and stick with them. And if you are the one that's trying to do the cultural change, I think it's about thinking sustainability, because we've done lots of things that have been great. We've had lots of engagement, lots of people on board, and it drops off because they can't find the support when they need it rather than when you think you should give them it. And I think it's about just thinking about champions and who's on board, making sure you've covered everybody, because there'll always be some staff members that you've forgotten about that only work nights on Friday and Saturday. And what's the floor walking like? What's that support like? And how does that link with the EPR? So you're talking about an assessment tool. How does it link in with the current assessments that are already being done? And if, like Alicia mentioned as well, done too, everybody loves another assessment. Not at all, did anybody ever say, in our world. So it's about how does it all fit in with what we've already got, and how onerous is it? What's the benefit for them? And if you can tell them and articulate the benefits to them, the engagement does increase. It really does. So, but it is about little steps, baby steps. Celebrate the wins as well, because they don't happen all that often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's me on mute now. I know she's going to hate me for this, but I'm going to bring Lynette on the screen if you don't mind. Just because I know you put the ask in there, or the point in there about that you're looking at BMAT. Lynette, there you go. Look, hello.
Hello.
Just to amplify your point you put in the chat to connect you with Juliet.
Yes, I would love to connect to Juliet really just to discuss BMAT a little bit further. We were looking at the one on Moving Medicine website. I don't know if you've seen that version as well. And I was trying to explore a little bit more with Oxford and University Trust how they use it there. So it would be great to link in with you maybe and have a conversation with my quality manager as well to
Yeah,
see
sounds
what work
good.
you've done already and share some ideas maybe.
Yeah, of course, that's fine. I'll drop you an email.
I've got your email address. I was just about to send you
Oh,
an
you
email and then I
email me and
heard
I'll
Nick
reply.
mention my name. I was like, oh my life.
I'm going to drag you on the screen, and then obviously Brian has put a little note in the chat as well for the conference, but also I don't know how well connected Brian is, but particularly well connected with Oxford. So there may be some link there with from an Oxford perspective that you could link in if that's okay. That's okay. Brilliant. Julia, I will drop you a line because I think it's worth coming back to this in terms of how we have a broader discussion around, we can send you around BMAT, maybe that follows on to the conversation with Lynette. But this type of approach, I think, is useful just to share, whether it's called BMAT or whether it's called MAT-B or whatever it's called. There's a principles-based approach to it, and I think it's useful to help share that, and then how does that align with the cultural conversation we have. So I think it'd be worth bringing that back. So thank you very much for starting that conversation. Amanda, I'm going to come to you. Oh, quickly go back to Lynette quickly.
Nick, have you got anybody else that we should link into then, apart from myself and Juliet? That you know.
We'll put something in the. I'll put something in the chat specifically on this. Once we finish, then we can link it together.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for waiting.
Hi there, no problem. Thank you. The reason I'm having, well, I'm actually at this meeting now is my name's Amanda and I work for a local charity called Friendship at Home, which is an older people's charity based in North East Lincolnshire. We've recently been commissioned to provide deconditioning support at the local hospital. Being an older people's charity, we see some of the effects from people who are deconditioned when they've been in hospital. So we're very, very passionate about this and we really want to make it work. So my plea really is to ask if anybody has or is aware of any charitable sectors, VCSE organisations, working on similar types of projects, just so we can sort of like try and get ahead a little bit with the learning on that and share hints and tips. Also, I can't access the DeconditioningNation website because you need an NHS email to access all that material. So I feel like we're missing out on that. So if anybody can point me in the right direction, I would really appreciate that.
I can sort that out for you, Amanda. It is a weird anomaly of the Futures platform, but if I invite you, then I can bring you in that way. So it will for you or any of your colleagues. If I email you first, and if you give me email address for other people, then I can invite you in. It is unfortunately one of those anomalies of the platform that direct access is not available for anyone there. It's just an email, but I can invite you in. So there's definitely a whole raft of resources there to access. Juliet.
Yeah, I can't be of any help, but we are looking to commission some charities to do something similar here. So if you do get any links, Amanda, please do share because that would be really useful.
Emma.
Hi, yeah, I work for Humber and North Yorkshire ICB and we've commissioned Friendship at Home to do this work in Deephow, Grimsby Hospital. So if you want to link in with me, Juliet, I can certainly share with you kind of service specs and things that we've done from a commissioning perspective and what we've utilised. We actually utilised some things that had been done down in London already with volunteers on the wards, which is what the scheme is about. So please do reach out to me and happy to share.
Thank you, Emma. And obviously this recording gets circulated with the whole group. So that's over 500. So specifically, if anybody's watching this on catch up, please get in touch with through me or through the chat or through WhatsApp or with Julia, Amanda, anybody who's on this group, please, if you've got any information regarding that, please do share. That's the value of the network. It's about how you can connect with each other and share knowledge. Thank you for that, Amanda, and I'll make sure that you're connected into the platform so you can get access to some of the materials.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
That's all right, no problem at all. Anybody got any more questions? Anything else you want to raise? Any points you want to make? Observations? Right, we're going to continue. We're coming up to time a bit, so we're going to continue these meetings in this style where we'll have speakers and discussion opportunities, mixing it up, see how that goes, see if that works well for people, and you can give me some feedback if you feel that's not the appropriate mix, and we'll change it around a bit. We always want to kind of reflect what's useful. We found that we were losing time previously for discussion and chat between and to share observations, so try something a bit different. I think that if I can take chair's privilege in terms of my final reflections on culture, uh, Brian kindly mentioned I'm an organisational psychologist. It sounds a fancy title, but it really isn't. But I do like a bit of culture, and I like a bit of understanding a bit of culture. And as Brian alluded to, it does sit on many levels, and that micro level, the thing that I found more interesting is around where we find culture at a professional level as well. So there'll be a culture of nursing, there'll be a culture of therapists, there'll be a culture of doctors, there'll be a culture of teachers or any other profession. There's a particular culture, and it's understanding where culture gets overused as a word is because we think it's uniform and we think it's homogenous. There's a single culture for an organization. Yes, an organization will have a culture, but it's not that easy, unfortunately. And we think if we do a bit of culture work, it's going to capture everybody. But that culture work won't speak to that particular group or that particular group. So in this kind of approach where you're working with multidisciplinary teams, it's also reflecting how do we understand the culture of the profession? Why is it perhaps that nurses feel that it's a therapist's job to mobilize patients? Or why do therapists feel that, whatever, there is some risk aversion in some of the decision making? Again, I'm making broad, very wide casting statements there, but it's understanding not just necessarily the culture of the ward, but the culture of the profession as well, because that's a very strong element to that. And culture is essentially when we really get into it, as a guy called Edgar Schein describes. He talks about it's just essentially how we do things around here. It's the language we use, it's the actions we portray, but it's the learning from other people. It's what we've picked up from other people as being normalized. So Aletia comes into an organization with these fresh ideas, and the culture of the organization could influence Alicia's view on the world, and she'll start to normalize what that looks like depending on what the culture around it exists. So it's understanding culture in its so many different facets, and it's really complicated, and it blows my mind sometimes when I think, well, how do you even start to think about this? But first of all, it's just bringing things to the surface and recognizing that it exists, and trying to understand this as we move forward with this type of work, which often results in if we try and rely on a central mandate from the chief nurse to say, right, on Monday morning we're going to do this, why are we surprised that it doesn't just suddenly take off? Because we haven't necessarily understood the individual layers of an organization, cultural layers, and then professional layers. So it's not to make this overcomplicated. It's just to understand culture is a for me one of those overly used words that we don't necessarily really deal with in its truest sense. And as the old phrase says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we can have all the plans in the world, but the culture. Well, I think this was to Deb's point. How do we take people with us? How do we understand their world? How do we walk in their shoes before we even start? There's a nice Japanese word called nemawashi. How do we create the environment? How do we fertilize the soil before we even start to introduce our improvement work? So keep that in mind as you start to understand, thinking, why won't people do this? Why don't they think like I think? Why won't they do this? Which is very, very frustrating. It's the cultural element is a very strong driver of that. So it's we'll hopefully touch back on it at a future meeting. But that was just I took my chair's privilege for a moment. So I like to go off on a bit of a geeky tangent occasionally. So thank you for indulging me for a couple of minutes on that. I hope a little bit of it was somewhat interesting. We will return back next month. Thank you very much for your time. I'll circulate the recording, so if you want to catch up or share it with other people, this membership for this group is always open to as many people who want to come along and come and join us for as often or as less as they like to. So please share the invite with others if they want to come and join the group. But for now, thank you very much for your time this lunchtime. Pleasant afternoon and a pleasant rest of the week. And we'll see you all again next month.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks.